All right, today we're diving deep into the dark and just absolutely fascinating story of one of history's most cunning criminals. This is a guy who looked at Asia's famous hippie trail and didn't see a path to enlightenment. He saw a hunting ground. This is the story of Charles Sobhraj, known to the world as the Serpent. You know, this quote right here, it just nails it. It perfectly captures the terrifying double act this guy was playing. On the surface, he was everything you'd be drawn to. Charismatic, intelligent, the whole package. But underneath all that was a cold, calculating predator. So let's peel back those layers and figure out how this monster was made. So where did Charles Sobhraj even come from? Well, his early life was basically the training ground for the criminal chameleon he would become. It was a masterclass in manipulation, shaped by a childhood that was in constant motion. Think about it. His whole childhood was a blur. Born in Saigon, but then shuttled between continents, he never really belonged anywhere. And that constant displacement, well, it didn't break him, it forged him. It taught him his most valuable and his most dangerous skill, how to read and manipulate people, just to survive. And he didn't just learn these skills, he perfected them. I mean, how do you even begin to track someone who could be literally anyone? He was a master of disguise, spoke multiple languages like it was nothing, and could slip into a new identity as easily as a snake sheds its skin. This made him a ghost, a phantom just drifting through countries, leaving total chaos behind him. Okay, so let's jump to the 1970s. This was the era of the hippie trail. You've got thousands of young, idealistic Westerners traveling across Asia, right? They're looking for adventure, for enlightenment. But for Sobhraj, this was just a target-rich environment. It was his personal hunting ground. His method was just chillingly systematic. It was like a four-step trap. First, he'd reel you in with his charm, maybe offer you a place to stay or invite you to a party. Then came the betrayal. He'd drug you, often saying it was medicine for a stomach bug. Once you were helpless, he'd take everything, your money, your passport. And the final, brutal step, if you got suspicious, if you were a risk, you were silenced, permanently. And the results of this twisted method? A horrifying body count. We might never know the exact number, but authorities suspect him in at least 20 murders across the entire continent. That single number, it just gives you a sense of the sheer scale of his terror. And his victims were from all over the world. These were young people from Canada, the Netherlands, America, all with dreams of exploration. His crimes created this international web of tragedy that stretched all the way across the globe. You know, a spree like that can't last forever. Sooner or later, the law starts to catch up. But even with the walls closing in, Sobhraj was always thinking 2 steps ahead. His capture wasn't the end of the story. Oh no, it was just the start of a new and even more audacious chapter. So how did he finally get caught? It was in New Delhi, 1976. He tried his usual drugging trick on a group of French students, but he made one critical mistake. The drug worked too slowly. The students realized something was wrong, they fought back, and they handed him right over to the police. Just one simple slip-up brought his reign of terror to a temporary halt. So he's sentenced to 12 years in Tihar, India's most notorious prison. Now, for most criminals, that would be the end of the line. But we're not talking about most criminals, are we? So let me ask you this. What do you think a man like this does when his sentence is almost up and he knows he's about to be extradited to another country to face a death sentence? The answer is pure manipulative genius. And that brings us to what might be the most legendary story in his entire criminal career, his great escape. But here's the thing, this wasn't an escape for freedom. This was something so much more cunning. It was a masterclass in playing the justice system itself. Okay, check this out. It's 1986, right before his sentence is up. He throws a massive birthday party inside the prison, drugs the guards and the other inmates, and just walks out the front gate. But here's the twist. He wanted to be recaptured. Why? Because the escape added more time to his Indian sentence, which meant he couldn't be sent to Thailand, where a death penalty was waiting for him. He literally chose more jail time just to cheat the executioner. It's incredible. So after he eventually gets released from India in the 90s, Sobhraj is a free man. But his story takes one last, totally bizarre turn. He makes one final, arrogant gamble that would, at last, seal his fate. Just look at this contrast. It's wild. In the 1990s, he's living it up in Paris, loving the notoriety, even charging journalists for interviews. He's a celebrity criminal. Then, in 2003, he does the one thing that makes no sense. Was it pure ego? Did he think he was completely untouchable? He traveled to Kathmandu, Nepal, one of the very few countries where he was still a wanted man. He was spotted in a casino, and his luck finally ran out. The Serpent caught while gambling. You can't make this stuff up. And that one fateful trip to the casino led to this. He was finally convicted for 2 of the murders he'd committed decades ago on the hippie trail, and was sentenced to life in prison in Nepal. It seemed like justice, after decades of him slipping through its fingers, had finally caught him for good. But the story has one final, very unsettling postscript. In 2022, at the age of 78, Charles Sobhraj was released from that prison, citing his age and poor health. He was deported back to France, where today he lives as a free man. So what's the takeaway here? This quote just says it all, doesn't it? He was the ultimate master of finding the loopholes, the cracks in the system, and slithering right on through. A man who charmed, manipulated, and killed his way across a continent, and leaves us with a truly chilling question. Can a snake like that ever really be caged?